Right, welcome back. Cheta Nwanze, the lead partner at SBM Intelligence, is joining me right now via Skype. Hello, Mr. Nwanze, and good to have you join us again today.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Let's get started about what the FBS released just a few days ago. When you saw that data, what came to your mind? Because a lot of people, like for me, I was expecting the whole of 2019 wasn't released. Q4 of 2018 wasn't released. The NBS went straight to Q2 of 2020. So I was like, what exactly is happening? But what do you think? I guess Dr. Kale may have some explanations for that.
No, to be fair to Dr. Kale, he's in a very difficult position. The NBS needs to be funded, and he has said, I remember him talking about it in the middle of 2019, that they hadn't had funding to do the unemployment reports. So it's when funding came that they were finally able to do it. Now, to answer your first question, what came to my mind when I saw the numbers was something that I cannot say on television as a good Christian boy. But it was basically all shades of we're in trouble. When you have unemployment at such high levels, and I tend to prefer to put the numbers together. So even if we take unemployment alone, 27.1% is very high. 27.1% means that we have the 10 highest rates on the continent, only after South Africa and Egypt. And you can see how their large unemployment rates are causing them all sorts of social problems. Now, by the time you add our unemployment rate together to it, unemployment, remember, is people who work less than 20 hours a week. By the time you add that unemployment rate to it, the whole thing is 55.7%. That's a figure that is really frightening. Then juxtapose that on Monday, a few days after the unemployment figures came out, inflation figures came out, and we have inflation at 12.82%. We have food inflation, which is critical in Nigeria, because a study that we did last year showed that only 37% of Nigerians have any discretionary income after food. So essentially, 63% of Nigerians spend all of their income on food. And then food inflation is at 15.48%. That's a scary figure, any way you look at it. Because what it means is that a loaf of bread today, that is 100 naira, will cost 115 naira next year. And it will keep going on if we continue on these rates. Something that jumped out at me, it was, by the time you take away the numbers for unemployment and just put it as raw numbers rather than percentages, Nigeria has 44.7 million unemployed people. That is the ninth largest set of people on the continent of Africa. It's a frightening figure, because it means that if the unemployed in Nigeria were taken as a country on their own, that would be the ninth largest country in Africa. We have a lot of work to do, but it's very telling that nobody from the government has said anything about those figures today, a week later. Nobody has said anything. We're just moving on like business as usual.
Hello YouTubers, welcome to Moneyline with Nancy TV YouTube channel. This is where we provide you with instructive business directions, processes, and guidance to help you assess the right resources to fund your businesses to withstand every form of internal and external shock. You will find here awesome informative videos on business, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle, just to help you make informed business and financial decisions. Punch the subscribe button and let us drive you through the world of business. Please follow all our social media platforms on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and follow us for latest updates on our website.
That's very telling.
You just hit a nerve there for me too, because you see in other climes, administrations watch these numbers, closely. I don't want to say US because it's so much of the US anytime. They are a developed economy, you know, and all of that. They have a lot of things going for them, which we do not have going for them. But for some administrations, once they see those kind of numbers, like inflation coming out, unemployment numbers coming out, that hasn't come out in a long time, there should be something about it that perhaps the administration should talk about, whether the finance minister and all of that, and try to soothe some nerves and tell us this is what they're doing to, you know, reduce those rates. Having said that, with what you said, what did you expect the administration to have done, apart from talking? Is it that the administration is also taking this approach of, we are already working, you know, we already have fiscal measures in place, and we also have some kind of interventions, even from the monetary side, to boost employment?
So it's clear that the administration's policies are not working. There's no, let's not even make any bones about it. If you look at the numbers all the way from 2010, it's clear that the number of unemployed people is growing. If we start, say, from 2015, when this administration came into office, we've grown, but the total unemployment has grown fourfold in their time in office. So that means that their policies are not working. What they should do, and it starts from the president himself, the president should be addressing Nigerians about this. The president, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Labor, the Productivity, these are people who should be on the front burner, telling us what will be done. You have policies that essentially have strangulated the economy. So one of the policies that I like to keep pointing is the border closure that happened in August last year. Now, if you take a deep dive into the employment figures, the trade sector, as of the last figures that came out before this one, was the second largest employer of labor in the country. It is still the second largest employer of labor, but it has fallen significantly. Now, trade has fallen, trade has been constricted because of the of policies such as the border closure. As a matter of fact, a direct line can be drawn from these policies to the dire unemployment situation. And what these policies are doing, things like the trade policy, border closure, the policy on restricting certain items, the CBN's direct interventionist policies, what they are doing is that they are basically restricting economic activity, and they are signaling to investors that Nigeria is not ready for business. So investors who would have brought money to Nigeria to help our private sector, because at the end of the day, it is the private sector that actually employs more people. The government can't employ everybody. Investors who would have brought money to help our private sector to expand are taking their money away, or they're investing in the bond market, waiting for a time that they can take the money away. It's so policy incoherence or policies that are downright not working are part of the things that are responsible for this situation. But again, I'll keep repeating it. It is very telling that nobody has seen it as important to address this issue. It's very telling.
How does this dovetail into Mr. President's vision of lifting 100 million people out of poverty in the next 10 years from when he announced it in 2019? So from that 2019 till 2029, we expected that 100 million people will be lifted out of poverty. That is, if the other administrations continue with what President Buhari wants to do, or even continues with that statement of lifting 100 million people out of poverty.
My apologies. There's no dovetail here. If the administration from 2023 continues with its policies, then we will have a problem. We'll have a bigger problem than what we have now. Again, the numbers are clear. It's something that you can't sugarcoat or can't hide about. We have essentially just 35 million Nigerians in full employment now. That is, by any standard, a crisis, especially in a country that claims to have a population of 206 million. If you have a population of 206 million, then you have just 35 million, 35.6 million if you want to be static. If you have that, just that percentage, which is give or take about 17% of the population in full employment, then you have a problem. Now we're talking of 17% of the entire population. But let us look at basically average numbers, as it were, because I think that will help make the arguments very clearer. The average number of employed people at the end of 2016 or in 2015, sorry, was 54.9 million. Then in 2016, it fell to 53.5 million. It fell again in 2017 to 52.1 million. It fell again in 2018, 51.2 million. Now, there was no data for 2019, and now it has collapsed to 35.6 million. I mean, you can look at the trend line. It's a gradual decrease year on year of people in employment. And then correspondingly, if you look at inflation line, the average inflation throughout the lifetime of this administration has been 13%. That has been average inflation. So in all of that time, number of people who are looking for job, who have work has fallen, and cost of living has gone up. What does that tell you? It tells you that the policies are not working. There really is no way to sugarcoat it. I wish it could be sugarcoated, but it just can't.
Is it that the policies are not working, or the administration is also finding it difficult because the administration walked a difficult terrain? 2016 recession, the administration, in fact, this administration will have 2 recessions in 4 years, as it were. You know, all price down, COVID-19 pandemic has worsened the efforts of the administration. Are you saying that perhaps ab initio, the policies of this administration plunged us even into a recession in the first place, and COVID-19 is not even helping matters?
So you have a situation where when this administration came into office in 2015, things were already on things had plateaued and were on a slightly downward trend. But the policies of demand management on the part of the CBN and basically the body language that's from the president that essentially told people that the CBN was not independent, because that's what the body language of this president did back in 2015. He made it quite clear that the CBN was not independent in terms of the way he acted, and then so the CBN began to do things to bring on demand management measures, and those things spooked investors. Then the refusal or the failure to appoint a cabinet for 6 months after being sworn in, which was almost repeated again after this the swearing in for the second term. Those little things, again, signaling is very important because they add to a perception. They add to a perception of lethargy. They add to a perception of inability to scope the problem. They should have hit the ground running from day one. As in, we ought to have known who the cabinet members of President Buhari's cabinet were on 2015, May 29. We should have known those people. So when you have those little things, they all add up. Now, conversely, when you look at Egypt as an example, Egypt, even though things are still tough there, it's clear that they're on the right track. So one of the things that they have done successfully now is that they finally brought inflation down to single digits. But in Nigeria, on the other hand, when this administration came to power, inflation was in single digits at 9.5%. Now it's firmly in double digits, and it's been in double digits pretty much since the end of 2015. So all of those things, again, we cannot, this is not scapegoating, this is simple as it is. We cannot pretend about the policy failures of this government.
Now, Mr. Nwanze, okay, let me halt you a bit. You said what the administration did in 2015 and all of that. The president did not appoint a cabinet on time, and what have you. But do you think that this administration has compensated for those inefficiencies with some of their policies, the cash, what do they call it, conditional cash transfer, Empower, all those things, homeschool feeding program, and all of that? If you take a look at Empower, the administration's vision about it is that, okay, we're trying to get some of these unemployed people to work, use them as teachers in the agri sector and what have you. The school feeding program is also empowering people in the agricultural sectors. They buy their eggs, they buy their local rice and all of that. Okay, I've mentioned Empower. You have the graduate entrepreneurship program also. You have, so hasn't the administration compensated for that? Your body language I'm getting, should I take that for the answer? Because this your body language is telling a lot more stories than your verbal answers.
In Nigerian colloquialism, they will call all of that stories that touch. At the end of the day, you are judged on results. It's that simple. There's no, every other thing is torrency. You are judged on results, and the results are very clear for everybody to see. Again, I'll repeat. As of when they came into power, 54.9 million people in employment. The next year, 53.5. The year after that, 52.1. The year after that, 51.2. Then we did not have any data, then 35.6. Conversely, unemployed, full unemployment, or not even unemployed plus underemployed, just full unemployment. As 2015, we had 6.8 million people unemployed. Then in 2016, 10.7 million people. In 2017, 14.8 million people. In 20 million people, and now 21.8 million people unemployed. I mean, it's a damn verdict. There's no way power can fill this gap. There's no possible way. There's no way that the palliatives can fill this gap, especially when you consider from the other perspective, the fact that the government, I mean, the research shows that we spend, give or take, about 90% government revenues on their services. So the economy is hungry. We're not generating enough revenue. You can see it in the fact that state governments, because we should not let the subnational units escape, even though many of them have been dealt a very bad hand, I will admit. But we can't let them escape their own responsibilities as well. Now, state governments, because they lack ideas, what they are doing is that they are turning on the very small businesses that will be able to ameliorate the situation, and they want to tax them to death. So you have a situation where state governments are running buck wild on businesses. The federal government is not providing any coherent policy direction. So everybody is doing what they are, and we can see the results. Forget all of these palliatives. That is what they are. They are not. They are just basically urinating in the wind. That's just what they are. They are not making a dent.
Okay, let's dwell a bit with the states, because I was coming to that. If you take a look at what the NBS released, Lagos State has the most employed people in the country. Imo State has the highest unemployment rate. In fact, Imo State, let me check the data again so that I'll be very clear. Imo State reported an unemployment rate of 48.7%, followed by Akwa Ibom State with 45.2%.
Akwa Ibom rejected the results.
Akwa Ibom rejects almost everything. So, but this is the data from MBS. So this is what we have.
I think the Akwa Ibom attitude is symptomatic of the general attitude. Not examining the data, just rejecting it outright. The difference between them and the others is that they were vocal about it. I think they made noise, but keeping silent in the face of such an embarrassing report is basically the same thing as rejecting the report outright.
Okay, for those that reject the report, is it just a matter of rejecting it? I will see that if you reject something, if you reject the data, come to me with a superior data. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but That's the way it ought to be, but quite unfortunately, it's something that we have sort of standardized in this country, where when somebody says something that you don't like, rather than sitting down to examine it, you scatter the table. It's a Nigerian habit. It's quite unfortunate, but that is what it is.
Okay.
So the Akwa Ibom reaction is not surprising. They've done it before. They will do it again. I remember when the first COVID cases were brought forward there. Their first reaction was to reject and pretend that it didn't exist. I think it's clear that that this is what the situation is now. So again, let me repeat: people are not working. Cost of living is rising very sharply. One thing that's really frightening me from the unemployment report is the fact that the labor force has shrunk by about 10 million people, which means that 10 million people have not migrated. If 10 million people had migrated from Nigeria, the whole world would have known. So the 10 million people have stopped looking for work, essentially putting more pressure on those who are still working. That is a way of spreading poverty even more.
Okay.
Repeat,
I still want us to dwell a bit with these states, because we seem to focus so much on the center. A majority of Nigerians live in states. Like we said, Imo State reported the highest rate of unemployment according to the MBS, 48.7%, followed by Akwa Ibom State, according to the MBS, not my figures now, 45.2%. Rivers State, 43.7% unemployment rate. What does this really say for policies of certain administrations? Because if you take a look at it, you see APC in certain states, you see PDP in certain states. I should guess they have different manifestos, they have different visions. But are we seeing a difference right now in terms of management of policies or administration in their various states? Or Nigeria is sick of something? There is something that is making us sick that perhaps we've not really yet understood. Should we change strategy as a country? You understand what I mean? Because if you take a look at it, okay, Anambra State reported the least unemployment rate. Lagos has the most employed persons. Lagos is APC. Anambra State is what party again? Is it ABGA also? You know, so
ABGA,
yes.
On paper.
I don't know, your own.
So so here's the thing. One of the problems, one of the key problems is the political structure is all wrong. So first things first, let me address what you said, that we spend too much time looking at the center, that not enough time looking at the states. It is true. But then the question becomes why? The truth is that the center is way too powerful. So it's always inevitable that people will spend a lot of their time looking at the center. Secondly, we have a lacuna. So, for example, I live in Lagos, but I cannot really say that I'm represented in Lagos. If I say I want to contest for political office in Lagos, I'll be told to go back home, wherever it is, despite the fact that I pay taxes here. So what that means is that it is more likely that I'll be looking at a place where I can at least get a modicum of representation, which is Abuja. Then again, the fact that we have this federal allocation committee thing, where the state governors spend a lot of their time going to Abuja to collect essentially alms, it means that is where it's easy for the state governors to blame a lot of things on the federal, and they do it. Then there's policy incoherence. One thing that typically always happens is when a new state government comes in, they change everything. They scatter a lot of what the previous state government has done. And think of Lagos as an example. And I'm a lot of these roundabouts. Someone who came in, vision is not there. A lot of the roundabouts that are built are junctures, but they are the same party. So it is all these kinds of policy incoherence. The largest absolute number of unemployed people. That's only fair. Lagos is the populated state in the country. And then it's responsible for a good chunk of our economy anyway. So most people come to Lagos, jobs are running out, so they will not have anything to do. So yes, there is a need to look more at the states. But I think just looking at the states without decoupling a lot of power from the federal government is a hiding to nothing. There's this thing called the exclusive legislative list, 58 items that are under federal purview. I mean, why should the federal government be directly responsible for fingerprint, for Christ's sake? There are a lot of things that the federal government needs to let go of so that the states can begin to find money by themselves to do these things. But as long as those things are under federal control, the states will not be able to raise money to do those things. It's that simple.
Okay, let's come to the issue and the challenges perhaps for policymakers, both from the physical and the monetary side, because you mentioned earlier that our authorities should be speaking on this kind of numbers coming in, not just even at the center, but even at the states. You know, if we take a look at policies that boost economic output to bring down unemployment, you see that those policies exacerbate inflation. The same thing that you see policies that rein in inflation constrain also the economy. So where does it put the government? For example, you're seeing all the interventions coming up concerning COVID-19 for individuals and businesses. How do you see it really playing out, perhaps for the unemployment numbers or for the employment numbers and for inflation? Because as we are right now, economists may call this, which we're experiencing, a stagflation, where you have high inflation, high unemployment, and perhaps sluggish economic growth, as is also maybe a bit worsened because we'll go into a recession.
Well, the key thing is the structural issues already existed. The COVID-19 pandemic simply came and basically opened it up for everybody to see. As in, we had been sweeping a lot under the carpet. So the pandemic just came and everybody can see the mess. It started, the first mess that the pandemic revealed was when the oil prices collapsed. And basically, as they collapsed, you found that suddenly Nigeria has no wiggle room. That was the first alarm bell that the pandemic showed. But the key point is that there was already a problem. If there was no problem, then the pandemic wouldn't have exacerbated it up to that level. We were caught up in a situation where we didn't have anything left in the reserves to battle the oil price collapse. That is also going to show up in food. I mean, just last week there was a report that the National Food Reserve is left with something about the order of 300 grams of food per person. 300 grams of food is less than a day's meal for everybody. So if that is what the National Food Reserve has left, then any real fluctuation, which brings us to the whole insecurity angle. Because one thing that I can tell you, and I have been saying this for years and been called all sorts of names on that score, is that a lot of people in Nigeria, small-scale farmers, are no longer able to go to the farms because of insecurity. That is eventually going to show up in the food numbers. It will show up there. So the first thing that Nigeria needs to do now, even before employment, is food. We need to find a way to bring down the cost of food and ensure that food is available to the people.
Okay.
Unfortunately, policy incoherence. So let me give a very good example.
Very quickly,
Recently,
Mr. Nwanze, we have to go.
Maize. Okay, the CBN added maize to the list of things that are banned from imports, as it were. Nigeria is already self-sufficient in maize production. The only times, if you look at a trend line from 1960, the only times we import maize in bulk is when we have a shortfall, which has happened 4 times in our history. We are about to have a shortfall. The National Association of Corn Growers said so. But yes, you've already put it on the ban. So what happens when cornflakes, starch, all those things that use maize as the primary ingredient, what happens?
Okay, I think we'll leave it at that because there will be so many issues to look at around these unemployment numbers that have been released by the NBS. You know, it touches on a lot of things. But I want to say many thanks for joining us on the program today. Cheta Nwanze, the lead partner at SBM Intelligence. Thank you very much. Just before I hand over to my colleague, there are a lot of messages coming in on Twitter, but let me see if I can just take a few. Okay, Alexander Henderson says, there are a lot of jobs created by the government, but only the vulnerable still get those jobs. To get a good job in Nigeria today, you need to know people at higher authority. These days, people still use money to buy jobs. Is hard to the common man. Okay, I think, Nnaji on Twitter said, please, Nancy, list out this unemployment data. Please just go to our, you can go to our website, we'll put it there, even on our Twitter page, it will be there. Our team will definitely put out all the numbers as released by the MBS on our Twitter page so that you can check out those numbers. Those numbers are not mine. All right, I'm handing you over to Enamako, the news studio right now to take us further with AIT reports. I'll see you all tomorrow, God willing. Take care of yourselves. Thank you for watching our video. Please hit the subscribe button below, turn on post notification to follow all our updates.